Office Hours. I'm Scott Rutherford. I'm here with two of my colleagues here at AXIOM Learning Solutions, President Herb Blanchard and Vice President of Learning Design and Strategy, Susan Nabonne Beck. And we're going to take a few minutes to talk about planning. Now, as a jumping off point, there's a fairly famous, very old quote attributed to Benjamin Franklin, even though that's not entirely sure the source. But the quote, and actually Reddit has attributed it to Taylor Swift, because apparently she said this too. Pretty sure it's Benjamin Franklin. If you plan to fail, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, is the quote. So we want to talk about planning. And we do a fair amount of that at AXIOM with our clients, and it's part of our custom solutions workflow. But it's really at the start where we talk about planning and this notion of road mapping. We do this for our own projects. We do this with our clients. So, Susan, let me start with you, just in terms of the planning discussion. When we talk about a roadmap, what are we talking about?
A roadmap is just like what it sounds like. It is a document, a consulting document, if you will, that identifies first and foremost where you're going, that end point, if you will, that finish line that you want to cross. It also evaluates where you are today to get to that finish line. What do you have ready? What gaps do you have in order to get there? And then the connection point, the GPS coordinates, if you will, between the starting line where you are today and the finish line where you want to end up. So that planning piece really takes us through each step that needs to get you from point A to point B.
So as we're coming up with that planning document, obviously that needs to start. It's based on a lot of internal conversations. It's based on within the client company, in our world, the company that we're working with and partnering with. Mm-hmm. It's based on internal conversations about what's the objective, what's the pain point, what are we trying to accomplish, and yep. Herb, you've dealt with these sorts of conversations with many companies over many years. Could you? From your experience, how important is it to have those conversations internally about just getting on the same page about what are we trying to do here?
I look at it as a mutual diagnosis, right? Using Susan as an example, she may take the lead in putting the roadmap together, but we're not getting from point A to point B without everyone being on the same page, right? So I like the term mutual diagnosis. I also think it's that old line of if a tree falls in a forest, do you hear it? Or if you buy a house near the airport, 8 months later, you don't hear the planes anymore. I think if you're day in and day out in the business, you get a lot of help from a consultant who's coming in with a fresh set of eyes. And that roadmap can open up a lot of problems they didn't foresee before, solutions they didn't see before, and that's why I look at it as a mutual diagnosis. And I hope I'm seeing it the way Susan's seeing it, who's doing it all the time, right? But I just look at it as if you're doing a mutual diagnosis, you're going to open their eyes to things they haven't seen before. You're going to see problems they haven't seen, problems they didn't know they have, and getting to that finish line kind of changes a little bit along the way. Right.
Yeah. So as a working consulting document, this is just about being able to ask questions and bring the right people to the table. How does that work in practice, and how do you know who needs to be at the table?
Yeah, that's a great question, Scott. I think there's a step back from that a company really needs to realize where they are and what they're tone deaf to, as far as what training needs are required. So a client may come to us and say, we want to do a leadership program. They know that that's their endpoint, but is it really? So the roadmap allows us to dig deeper, ask the questions to determine really what that endpoint is for them that they really need. Is it a training program, or is it coaching with their existing their existing leaders? Is it more of a top-down approach that should be taken, not necessarily starting with their frontline leaders? So we are really digging in, if you will, to what they believe is their endpoint. That's one scenario. Another scenario may be they have no idea where they're going, but they give us data and say, we need to correct this data. Maybe customer service scores are low, or call volume is high and the rate of answer is low. Whatever it may be, I was speaking to customer service situations there, but it really could be anything. So we dig in of, okay, here's where you are today. Here is where those endpoints may end up, and here are the paths in which you may take. So, yes, we need those subject matter experts at the table. We often need those stakeholder discussions to determine really what the end objective is. But we also need practitioners at the table. Who is going to be doing the work? Is it someone internally, or are you looking to use AXIOM for that? Who are the people that I'm going to be working with day to day, or the team is going to be working with day to day to qualify these GPS coordinates throughout the road mapping process? So when we think about who needs to come to the table, it really depends on where they are now and that endpoint of where are they going.
And so you're sort of reverse engineering, okay, what's the project team look like? What's the scope look like?
Right.
Does that also then gets into budget? Now, is that something that then the planning team, the team involved in the roadmap, can then go back to the stakeholders in the business and say, well, look, here's the scope we're looking at, and maybe present some options?
I mean, I love the GPS coordinate analogy. If you're going to dinner and you put the right address in and you show up and the restaurant's not there, you have a problem, right? So I think getting the right people involved, per Susan's point, is you've got to get the right result. If you produce, if you get to the right endpoint and the right endpoint doesn't produce the right result, not so much, right? So by getting all the people in that she's talking about, you should be able to come up with something where you're getting the right result and everyone's on board.
And Scott, the beauty of the roadmap document itself, thinking about what the output is, this document becomes a planning document, yes, but also something you can take to upper level stakeholders and say, these are the possibilities. These are this is the, no pun intended, map of where we need to go. These are what the consultant is suggesting. And we dig deep enough into that roadmap document where we can offer different solutions. It may not all be, you want to take a cross-country trip, and we're not going to say, okay, here's point A, we're in California, and then we're going to end up in Boston. No, we can say, okay, if you're not ready for that, we can do phased approach. We can make it to Texas and then make it to the other side of Texas, because we all know that it takes forever to get across Texas, and have stopping points along the way to offer them, yeah, this would be a particular scenario. We can train frontline supervisors first. Second phase would be, all right, we're going to train managers of managers, and then so on and so forth. So it becomes this document of possibilities.
And it sounds to me as it's as much a L&D document as it is a tool for managing up. And that is a practice that has value not just within L&D, though L&D sort of famously has the need. We have to manage up and influence and get alignment with the leaders of the organization. And if you read about, okay, what are best practices? How do you manage up as a mid-level manager? Getting alignment in outcomes and alignment on intent is critical.
Yes, evaluating learning, something that training and learning, all too often, I should say, become a check mark within a company. The roadmap document actually gives us a baseline for where we are in our data, whatever it may be, return on investment potentially, and where we want to go. We want to achieve XYZ within 3, 6, 9 months, 1 year, and we can then monitor that based on the guidelines put within the roadmap document.
I like the point about the hidden opportunities, Susan. That doesn't necessarily happen every time, but more often than not, that document's going to lead to hidden opportunities, and sometimes we've actually introduced our partners to other resources because we may not be the expert in that particular thing, and that all comes from the
Sure.
roadmap document, right? So
Absolutely.
Right. And that's sort of a personality of of the way we like to work. For anyone watching this who hasn't worked with Axiom, is there's part of us, part of our mode of working is that we're kind of a matchmaker, and that our intent is to put together resources that match whatever the need of the project is, and sometimes those are resources that we have within our scope of work, which is great, but sometimes it isn't, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
And we are commonly and very frequently make those recommendations and introductions outside of our immediate sphere because they benefit the project we're trying to move forward.
That being said, part of the roadmap document is a SWOT analysis, or thinking of it this way: what's working, what's not working, what do we need to implement to make it work, and what are we really concentrating on that maybe we shouldn't be concentrating on? That's where we identify a lot of these hidden needs, if you will, and potential partnerships beyond what they know today. I'll use AI, for example. Are there things in the new up and coming AI features that we can be using with them? Virtual reality or AR, augmented reality, manufacturing, big potential for that. 3D imagery, things that they're probably not thinking of unless they are a robust learning organization, that we can offer suggestions to really take their learning and development to the next level.
It's really not a big commitment what you're referring to, the document itself, right? You can hate to use this term, but it's almost like a very creative cheat sheet, right? And Harvard Business Publishing put something out. It was sort of like a Gartner report, Scott. And 44% of the C-suite relies heavily on the customer experience when making decisions. And so I look at that document, which isn't a big commitment. Sorry for the language, Susan. The cheat sheet's probably not the best, but
That's great.
It really is a cliff note, right? To a certain extent, do you want to go further, right? In helping them determine which areas to go further, which areas not to go further, and it's
it's also focusing efforts too, and I think this kind of builds on what Susan was saying about there's the challenge of the there are myriad tools and technologies in L&D, and if any one of us tried to use all of them on a particular project, A, we would quickly bankrupt ourselves, and B, it wouldn't make sense because we'd be throwing tons of tools and noise and technology at the problem where it doesn't fit.
Right.
The roadmap and the structure is a way to identify, okay, what's necessary and appropriate, and bring in the right pieces, not just any pieces, not just the shiny objects.
And I'll give an example. One of our clients, what they realize is they really do need to invest in a learning management system based on the roadmap, meaning that they weren't going to be able to track these programs that they were hoping to create via a spreadsheet. It didn't make sense. So that led them to us partnering to find the right learning management system for them. Right. Now, was it an absolute bottom line need? No, but we analyzed what would the manpower look like for someone to keep a spreadsheet of everyone in the company and what they've taken in training versus what it would be for a learning management system to be able to do all that reporting, ad hoc reporting for them on the fly based on their numbers of sites across the country. So it's again, thinking back to what Herb said of these hidden challenges that maybe never came to light before, or there's these thoughts of, oh, wait, you can make my job easier. You can help us in a way that we become more efficient. That is really the focus of the roadmap.
All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Herb Blanchard, Susan Nabonne Beck, Axiom Learning Solutions, my colleagues. Thanks for sharing a few thoughts here on our LinkedIn office hours. I'm Scott Rutherford with Axiom Learning Solutions. Thanks for joining us, and please let us know what you think in the comments. Till next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.